Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive.
Great to be here.
Today we're plunging
into a qualifying
pretty much headfirst into a Formula One race that was
absolutely. We're talking about the Hungarian Grand Prix qualifying on August 2nd, 2025.
A real test
session
of nerve.
where
and one of the most nail-biting
finishes
finishes we've seen all season.
left scratching his head,
sure.
wondering
We're talking,
how
of course,
on earth
about the Hungarian Grand Prix,
twists, turns, and
August 3rd,
actual
2025.
literal shifts
This
in the
wasn't
wind.
just cars
really
going
was
around
one of
a
those
track.
days
No,
at the
not at all.
Hungarian
It was like
where
a high-speed chess
everything
match.
you thought
Yeah,
you
exactly.
knew
And
got
ended
turned
with this
upside down.
razor-thin
Strategy,
victory
driver
and
skill, those
that
tricky
intense
track
McLaren
conditions.
battle that nearly
It all
ended
very
blended
differently.
together.
And that
almost
blend created
disastrously.
quite the starting grid
So,
for tomorrow.
for
So our
this
mission
deep dive,
today is to
we've,
unpack all of that.
pulled together
We're
the
diving
key
into
bits
the
from
key
loads
moments,
of sources.
Right. Detailed race
strategic
reports,
calls,
some
bullet
great
points, actually.
analysis
Really
from
surprising
F1
results.
blogs
Exactly.
and
We've got
outlets like
live
DZN,
reports,
Radio
commentary
Marca.
straight from the
And
circuit,
direct quotes,
basically
too.
a minute by
Drivers,
minute look at how
team
the drama
principals, the
unfolded.
lot.
The idea is to
Plus
help you
those lap-by-lap
understand
breakdowns.
how it all came
So
together.
our mission is
The
pretty simple,
conditions,
really.
the
We want to give you
driving,
that shortcut.
maybe a little bit
Yeah,
of luck
get you
too.
right up to
Right,
speed
how all
on
those
this
ingredients cooked
absolutely
up such an
thrilling race.
unpredictable
We'll
qualifying.
unpack the big
Okay, let's
strategic
get into
calls,
it.
those standout
Let's do a
drives.
Q1
And,
first.
you
Right,
know,
Q1.
what it all
So
actually
the
means for
session
the
kicks off,
championship
and there's
fight.
this,
So,
typical
yeah.
Hungaroring buzz.
Strap
but
in,
drivers are
because
initially holding
this
back
one,
a bit.
Standard procedure,
It was
really.
pretty wild.
Waiting
really
for the track
was.
to rubber
Okay,
in,
let's start
get
setting the
faster,
stage. We mentioned
going
strategy
too
right
early.
away.
We saw
And a
some
huge
early laps.
part of that
Carlos
is the
Sainz in the
Hungarian
Williams, the
itself.
FW47.
What makes this track
actually
such
had
a
a
unique
lock
puzzle?
up into turn
Well,
one straight away.
It's
Yeah, not ideal.
It's
Albon was out
relentless,
there
really.
too.
Our
but,
sources nail
his
it, I
first
think,
times
saying
were
it demands a good
pretty quiet,
passage through the
just
curve
feeling
against
things
pure
out, like you
speed.
said.
Because all
It's
those
always
tight
that
corners.
balancing
Exactly.
Q1, isn't it? Get a safe
Loads
lap
of
in, but knowing
closed
the track's only gonna
curves
get
as they
quicker.
put it, and
Precisely.
hardly any
It's a
long
moving
straights.
target.
That's why
You're
people call
gathering
it
data,
Monaco without
seeing
the
how much
walls.
grip is
you know?
coming.
Right, I've heard that.
But then,
So that
almost straight
fundamentally
away,
changes the
McLaren
race.
seemed to say,
Completely.
okay, enough
Overtaking.
waiting.
Extremely
Piastri
difficult,
bangs in a
which instantly makes
1.15.554,
track position,
Which was
qualifying,
seriously quick that
even
early
just
on.
the start.
Yeah.
Absolutely
A full
critical.
4/10
So every
faster
decision
than
gets
Lando
magnified.
Norris, and
Like
Norris was
tire
looking
management,
pretty
strategy
himself.
calls. And Piastri did that on
Precisely.
used tires
And getting
too,
good
which
traction out
really
of the
hinted
slow
at the
corner.
potential
You
McLaren had
earn
right from the start.
every
It was a
single
clear
tenth
signal.
of a second.
But
around
just
it.
as you're thinking,
So,
okay,
if
McLaren
passing
looks
is that
strong.
hard, does it mean
Fernando
qualifying?
Alonso in the
Or
Aston Martin
pit strategy
just
often
explodes
decides
onto the
it?
scene.
He did,
More so than,
An
say, pure
incredible
bravery
pace.
on track.
Incredible 1.15.
Or does it just ramp up the pressure for those few chances you do
Suddenly
get?
he's P1.
I think it does both, actually.
That must have raised
It makes
some
strategy
eyebrows.
Oh,
key,
absolutely.
but it also
It
means
showed
when
Aston
an
Martin wasn't
overtaking
just there
chance
to make up the
appears,
numbers.
Yeah.
It's high
And Lance
stakes.
Stroll was up
And
there
we
too,
saw that
initially
right from the
P4.
lights out, didn't we?
So what did that tell us?
Leclerc
That
held the
Aston had
lead
really
from pole.
clicked
He
with the
did a
Hungarian
clean
this
start
year.
for him.
It
But
certainly
behind
looked
him,
that way.
bit
Alonso's
messy.
lap wasn't just
Piastri
a
made
one-off.
quite an aggressive move on Norris.
Stroll backing
Yeah,
it
that
up
pushed
suggested
Lando
the
down to
car
fifth
genuinely
pretty
worked
quickly,
well
covered
there.
some valuable
Especially
ground.
Definitely
in those
amplified
medium
the
speed
importance of that
corners.
first
They were
lap.
contenders.
But
Meanwhile,
some
the
drivers
track
made it
itself
work
was
for
just
them.
getting faster
Alonso
and
had a great
faster.
start.
Constant
He did,
changes
yeah,
on the
jumped up to
leaderboard.
fourth.
Impressive
Non-stop
stuff.
evolution.
George Russell
You'd see a
too,
driver
slotted
jump
into
up,
third
then tumble
nicely.
down
And
seconds
Sainz
later.
made up
Someone
some
else has
places,
got
more
himself
grip.
up to
And
11th
it caught
early
some
on.
big names
So
out,
a real
didn't it?
mix of
Even Max
fortunes,
Verstappen.
and we even had
His
those
first
early
lap wasn't
jumpstart
safe for Q2.
investigations.
Oh yeah,
Which is
Bortolino got
really
cleared.
rare for
But
Max.
Hulkenberg didn't.
He had to go again,
Got that 5-second
showing just how
penalty,
quickly
which
you
kind
could
of
fall
forced an early
behind
pit
if you
stop for
didn't
him.
nail the lap
Right.
at the right
That
time.
penalty
And then
straight
there was
away,
that
that really
weird
put his team
moment
on the
with
back
Esteban
foot, didn't it?
Ocon
Yeah, strategy out the
recording
window
a
almost
screw in his
immediately.
Haas's
So
right
Hulkenberg's
wheel.
early
Yeah,
stop was
bizarre.
forced.
And
But then we
in
saw
a
others
session
pitting
that
quite
tight,
early too. Even
Colpinto,
something small like
Ocon,
that,
Albon,
it can unsettle the
Sainz
car,
around lap
cause
16,
vibrations,
17, all
maybe
going
even
on
a
to
slow
hearts.
puncture fear.
Is that a
Every
clear
thousandth
sign they were all
counts, right?
committing
So
to a
screw.
two-stop?
Yeah,
It
that could
certainly
definitely be the
looked
difference.
that
Absolutely.
way.
It
A
just adds
clear
another layer
signal
of
of
complexity
intent
for the driver
going
and
for the
team
hard
to deal with.
tires that early
So
usually
when the
means
clock
you're planning
hit
to
0
come in
for
again.
Q1,
It was an
those tight
aggressive
margins
approach.
meant
But
some
then
had to
things
pack
got
up
really
early.
interesting
Yep,
with the
we
leader's
lost
strategy.
Yuki Tsunoda,
This is where the
Pierre
chess game
Gasly,
really started.
Esteban Ocon.
Piastri blinked first,
May-
didn't he?
He did.
That screw
Lap
played apart
19,
Nico Hulkenberg
dove into the
and
pits for
Alex
new
Albon.
hards.
A tough start
trying
for
that
them, but it
undercut on
definitely set
Leclerc.
the scene
A
for more
classic
intensity to come
Hungarian
in
move,
Q2.
And
trying to
Q2
leapfrog
didn't
using the
disappoint on the
pit
drama
stop.
front either.
Aggressive,
No, it
but
started with the
potentially
delay,
high
actually.
reward.
Gravel on
And
the track
Ferrari's
needed
reaction was
clearing.
And
instant.
that delay
delay had a
pulled
consequent
Leclerc in the very next lap.
Yep, lap
41
20.
degrees
And it was
Celsius.
close.
That's
So
significant
close.
change.
Leclerc
Then
came out
green
just,
light
what,
and
2 seconds
whoosh.
ahead?
Just
All
about.
15 cars
Perfect
just
response from
scrambled out onto
Ferrari,
the
really.
track.
Kept the
Why
lead,
the
but
big
only
rush?
just. Showed how tight the
There was a
margins
definite
were.
threat.
Absolutely
Reports
a
of
masterclass
light
in
drizzle in
reacting
some
under
corners.
pressure.
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
But
So
then-
everyone wanted a banker lap in
Then
before
came
the heavens
the
potentially
real
opened.
strategic
Exactly. Get a
curveball.
decent time on the board
yeah.
while the track was
Lando
still,
Norris.
you know,
This is
mostly
where it got
dry.
really
It was
fascinating.
urgent.
Lap 28.
And who's at the top early
The
on?
team basically
Fernando
asks
Alonso
him,
again.
can you do 40 laps on the hards for a one-stop?
1.15 on
And
new
his
tires.
response?
Still showing that
So
Aston
calm.
Martin pace.
Yes.
Why not?
But then they did
just
something
like
really
that.
interesting.
Incredible
Right.
confidence.
The
Maybe
strategy
incredible
play. They
gamble.
kept him in the garage.
He pitted
for
on
his
lap
second run.
31, came
Bold
back
move.
out in
fourth,
Very
about
bold.
7 seconds
Saving a set of
behind
new
Russell.
softs.
That was seriously bold.
That
40
takes
laps
some
on hards
serious
around here.
confidence, especially
That's
with the
asking a
track
lot of the
evolving
tires.
and
Huge
rain
ask.
maybe coming.
But he
Massive
wasn't the only one
confidence.
rolling the dice, was
Trusting
he?
that
No
first
way.
lap was good enough.
Fernando Alonso.
And it paid off, didn't it? He got
Heroic,
through.
really.
And crucially
Also
had
committed
that
to one
extra
stop.
new set
And he
for
stretched
the
that
final
first
shootout.
stint on mediums
Huge
incredibly
advantage
long.
later
He said
on.
afterwards,
While
didn't he?
Aston
I
was
controlled the
playing
tires in
chess,
the first
McLaren
10,
seemed to
15
just
laps,
wanna
and from there I
crush
started to push a
everyone
little
right
more.
then and there.
Just
Lando
amazing
Norris
feel and management.
just obliterated
Unbelievable.
the
He didn't pit
times.
until lap 40.
1.1
Went on to new mediums, rejoined
7
8th.
The risk with those one-stops here are massive, though. You get
That's
stuck in
a
traffic.
huge
Oh,
jump.
it can
Huge.
ruin your race completely.
And Piastri was right there with him.
We
only
even
half
heard
a tenth
Verstappen
back.
getting frustrated,
At
right?
that point, you're
After his
thinking
first
McLaren
stop
front
around
row
lap
lockout.
25.
Sure.
Yeah, he called the
They looked
timing terrible because he
completely
just hit a
dominant.
wall
Their
of
car
traffic.
just seemed
Exactly. It
dialed
just
in
shows
as
you
the
need
track
clear
rubbered
air,
in more.
perfect tire
Looked like they had a
management.
really
It's such a
strong
delicate
operating
balance,
window
pace,
in those
preservation,
specific
and just
Q2
pure grit, like
conditions.
you said.
And that grit was
It wasn't
definitely
smooth
needed.
sailing for
We
everyone.
saw Norris have
Ferrari
to
and
fight back
Mercedes
early on,
suddenly looked
passing
vulnerable.
Alonso
Yeah,
back
Leclerc
on
and
lap
Hamilton
3
were
after
both
losing out at the
hovering
start.
near the
Showed
drop
his
zone
determination
initially.
straight away.
Bit of a shock.
But then,
Leclerc managed
as
to pull
Alonso's
himself up
mediums
to fifth.
aged, that
Bit of
tire
a relief
advantage
for
really
Ferrari, I
tolls, right?
imagine.
He did.
Leclerc and
but Lewis
Piastri
Hamilton
on fresher rubber after their
He
stops.
couldn't find the time.
They both got
He was
past
out.
him around laps
Hamilton
21,
out in
22.
Q12.
It's
That's
just
a
how
huge
it
shock.
works.
And
That
Carlos
tire
Sainz,
delta
too,
becomes
P13.
too big
Massive
eventually.
surprises. Like a rising tide.
When
Just
drivers of
inevitable.
that caliber
But connecting
miss
this back to the
Q3,
bigger picture,
it really tells you
the
something about
McLaren
the
battle
conditions,
really
or
took
maybe
center stage.
maybe their
didn't it?
teams
completely.
just didn't
Yeah.
quite
Piastri
nail
was
the
absolutely
setup or timing.
relentless in those
Leclerc
later
actually
stages.
said afterwards
just
something
chipping
interesting.
away,
He
chipping
mentioned
away at
having
Norris's
less
lead.
You could see the
less
gap
downforce,
tumbling. He cut
basically.
what was
Right,
it,
and he said when the
1.4
rain started, he
seconds
was
one
just
lap.
hoping it would stop
Yeah,
soon
then another
because that setup
0.7
made it harder
seconds.
to cope.
So
By
that
lap
gives you an insight
59,
into the
the gap
struggles,
was down
doesn't
to
it?
just
A setup
3.6
maybe
seconds.
aimed for pure dry
Serious
pace
pressure.
suddenly
And
becomes
before that,
tricky when
lap
there's even a
51.
hint of
That
drizzle.
decisive
Exactly.
move
It shows
on
how
Leclerc
fine the
for
margins
second
are.
place
Trying to
outside of
predict the
turn one.
conditions and set
That
the
was
car up
masterful.
perfectly. Brilliant overtake. It wasn't
tiny
just
bit
speed,
less
was it? It felt like a
downforce can make a
psychological
huge
difference
difference
when
when
grip
grip
pressure
pressure
on
on
Lando.
So the final
Absolutely.
Q2
And while that was
eliminations,
happening,
Hamilton
Leclerc,
P12,
well,
Sainz P13,
his frustration
and
was
joining
obvious.
them were
Yeah, that
Ollie
radio
Bierman,
message on lap 54.
Franco Colapinto,
Pretty raw.
and Kimi
This is
Antonelli.
incredibly
A real
frustrating.
mix-up heading
Should
into
have
the final
listened to me.
part
It's
of
a
qualifying.
miracle if we
Q3
finish on the
looked
podium.
wide open.
Okay,
Wow.
Q3. When
The
you hear
final
that from a
shootout.
driver who
Top
started
10
on
drivers,
pole
It
position
tells
on
you
the
a
line,
lot, doesn't it?
and
About
the
conditions.
pressure, maybe some
Still
disagreement on
changing.
Track
strategy
temps kept
calls.
dropping.
He
Down to
clearly felt
37 degrees
decisions that
Celsius
cost
right
him.
And we saw the Aston Martin,
That's gotta be
Stroll,
tough
and
when you're in the
Alonso
cockpit,
out quite
feeling
early
the
for their
tires,
second
seeing the
runs,
race unfold.
trying to get the best
points
of
to
the
that
cooling
potential
track.
Seems like it.
between the
Get
driver's
out before
feel
potential
and
traffic.
pit walls data
Maximize the tire
sometimes,
window
and
as the
here
track
on
cools.
this track,
Maybe their
those
car
calls are
preferred those cooler
everything.
conditions
Huge
slightly.
pressure.
A proactive
And there were other
approach.
battles,
So
too.
the first runs
Russell
happen.
and
Oscar
Leclerc fighting
Piastri
hard
puts
for
it on
third.
provisional
Yeah,
pole.
some close moments there, near touches. Before Russell finally
Strong
secured
lap.
P3
Looked
around
like
lap
McLaren was still
61 or
right there.
62.
And
Norris
that
slotted in just
Verstappen-Hamilton
behind him,
incident
then
earlier,
George Russell in the
around lap
Mercedes
29,
P3,
30.
and Alonso
Hamilton
initially
forced off
P4.
track.
Still
Right,
felt like a
allowed
McLaren
Verstappen
pole, maybe.
through. It was just
Yeah, the provisional
action-packed
time
throughout the
suggested
field,
they were still
really.
the
But
favorites.
that pressure cooker
Piastri's
really
lap
boiled over
reinforced
in the
that
final
pace we'd
laps,
seen
didn't it?
earlier.
Especially
A
between the
1-2
McLaren.
felt
Oh,
very
absolutely.
much on
That was
the
the showdown
But then
everyone was
Alonso
watching.
goes for his
Edge of
second
your
run,
seat stuff.
using
In
that
that
fresh
moment,
set of tires, they
Lap
say.
69.
But he finds a chunk of
Piastri
time. Jumps up to
going
provisional
into turn
P2.
one.
Only
Almost
0.083
touched
seconds off
Norris.
Piastri.
I mean, my heart
Really
was in my
impressive.
mouth.
Mine too. You
That
could just
tire
imagine
strategy
Zach
paying
Brown
dividends right
watching
there.
on.
Absolutely
The tension
vindicated.
must have been
Gave him the ammo to
unbearable,
push right at
pushing
the
right
end.
to the absolute
Brilliant
limit.
strategy,
But Norris
brilliant
just held
execution
on.
by
Yeah.
Alonso.
By
So we're
0.6
heading into
seconds.
the final moments.
His 5th win of the year,
Piastri P1,
9th career
Alonso
win.
P2, Norris
Spectacular.
P3.
A truly
It's
brilliant
tense.
finish. One
What
for the
happens
highlight
next,
reels.
for
Utter
sure.
shock.
So let's recap
basically.
the key
Charles
results.
Leclerc.
The guy
Norris
who struggled
first,
in Q2, who
Piastri
talked
second,
about having
then
the
McLaren
wrong
1-2.
setup.
George Russell
That guy
back on the podium in third.
Pulls out what some
Great
describe
drive
as a
from him.
stratospheric
Leclerc,
lap.
a frustrating fourth after starting
1.15.372.
Yeah, you could feel his
Wow.
disappointment.
Just like
And
that pole
Fernando
position
Alonso.
for Leclerc.
Snatched it
Just
right at the end.
outstanding in
McLaren,
fifth.
who looked set
Best
for the
result
front
of the
row,
season, just
making
couldn't
that
respond.
one
Stop
a complete stunner.
Where
Incredible.
did that come from?
Truly
Was it the track unbelievable drive
changing
from
again,
Fernando.
favoring the
Showed all
Ferrari,
his
or just an
experience.
unbelievable
Less good
lap
news
from
for
Charles?
Saints, though.
Probably a
finishing
bit of both.
14th after that tangle
But
with
mostly,
Gasly.
you have to say,
Yeah,
An
unfortunate end to his
exceptional
race.
lap under
But that
pressure.
McLaren result,
Finding that extra
was more
something
than
when it
just a
mattered
1-2.
most,
that 200th
especially
win
after the
milestone.
earlier
exactly.
struggles.
Only the second team
Remarkable.
ever
The
to reach
driver
that
reactions
number
afterwards
after
really
Ferrari.
paint the
It's
picture, don't they?
huge.
And their
Leclerc
fourth
himself
double podium
basically
in a
said he
row.
didn't get it.
7th
Yeah,
of the
his
season.
quote was
It
amazing.
just underlines their
Today, I don't
resurgence, doesn't it?
understand
This isn't
anything.
a flash
I don't
in the
understand
pan.
Formula One.
They have
I have done a lap to
operational
try to be
excellence,
third, and I have
strategic
finished in pole.
confidence.
Incredible
It
honesty.
feels like a real
Aiming for
shift.
third,
Back to maybe
ends
having
up
multiple
first.
teams
He called
fighting
it
at
one
the
of his
very front.
best,
That's what it
most
looks like. And that
unexpected
200th
poles.
win,
And that just
it's not
sums up
just
the whole
history.
session,
It
doesn't
feels
it?
like a
Pure
statement about their future.
unpredictability.
Very
Even the
potent.
driver on
So
pole
after all
couldn't
that
fully
intensity,
explain it. What were the
highlights
drivers
how
saying?
fine
Norris
those margins
sounded
are.
Then you had the
wiped
McLaren
thrill.
drivers.
Yeah, he said,
Piastri
I'm
in
dead.
LP2
It's been tough.
talked
We
about
didn't
the
plan a
wind.
single
He
stop.
did.
The result is
Said
perfect.
it changed
You could
drastically
hear
from
the
Q1 to
exhaustion.
Q3.
But he
Felt
also
pathetic,
seemed to enjoy
blaming
the
it,
fight with
but it
Piastri.
really affected the
It's
car's
fun to fight
feel
with
in the
Oscar.
corners.
Said his
and great
first
for the
Q3
team.
lap was
Shows that
terrible
competitive
because of it,
spirit,
and he added,
but also
he didn't
that
expect to be
team
second
focus
behind
they
a
seem to
Ferrari.
have even
Shows you
when
where
battling
McLaren
that
thought the
hard.
competition
It's quite
was.
impressive.
And
Norris
Piastri in P3
obviously wanted the win,
echoed
but
that
seemed to
comment.
accept it.
Said
He
it was
did.
strange not
He
to
said
get a
it was
McLaren 1-2
difficult
given their
because
form.
overtaking
Praised
is not
Leclerc,
easy
but
here.
felt the
This
wind
time it didn't
penalized
fall
their
on our
car more
side.
than others.
But
Made his
he
last
stood by
sector
the
really
undercut
tough.
attempt
That
on
consistent
Leclerc.
mention of
Yeah,
win
trying
from
the
both
undercut
McLaren drivers is key.
was the right
isn't it?
decision.
Suggests their car
Shows his
and
conviction,
aero
doesn't it?
philosophy
Absolutely,
was
he's not backing
particularly
down.
sensitive to
And
those
Russell,
gusts.
And that
Just happy to be
sensitivity
back.
cost
Very happy
them
with
when it
today's
mattered
race.
most.
Happy to
A
be back on
reminder
the
of how
podium.
these cars are on
Simple
a
as
knife
that.
edge.
And how
Big boost for
something
him.
invisible
Definitely.
like
And
wind
Alonso
can completely
loved
shuffle
his
the pack.
roller coaster
Different
coming over
cars
the last
react
2 weeks.
differently.
Yeah,
we should also
in
mention
Spa, we
Aston
started
Martin again.
last.
Lance
And
Stroll
here
finished
with the
P6.
opposite feeling.
Only
with
0.120
optimism.
seconds
It shows
off
the
Leclerc's
incredible
pole
highs
time.
and lows.
Really
And his hope for
underlines
the rest
their
of the
strong
season.
weekend. Not just Alonso.
3 or 4
was
weekends like
genuinely
this out of
quick.
the last 10
a
races.
big step forward for them.
Quite grounded.
So the final
really.
top 10 grid,
Managing
Leclerc
expectations.
P1,
Mike
Piastri
Crack at
P2,
Aston Martin
Norris
echoed that
P3,
positive
Russell
vibe too,
P4, Alonso
calling the result
P5,
very
Stroll
motivating
P6.
before the
Then
break.
Gabriel
And
Bortoleto
acknowledging that
P7,
fierce
Max
battle in the
Verstappen down in
championship.
P8, Liam
Which
Lawson
leads us to
P9,
the
and Isaac
standings.
Hadjar P10.
So what does this
What a
all
mixed up
mean?
grid.
Well,
Truly
it's got
diverse,
seriously
like you
tight at
said,
the top,
reflects
hasn't
that
it?
chaotic
It really
session
has.
perfectly.
Piastri
Sets up
still
a
leads,
potentially
284
thrilling race.
points.
You look at that order,
But
and it
Norris
promises some
is
action
now
on
just
Sunday.
9 points
So,
behind on
just
275.
wrapping
That's
up,
incredibly
what an
close.
unbelievable
And Verstappen,
qualifying
a distant
at
third
the
now,
Hungaroring.
187
Dynamic
points.
conditions were the story,
Quite a change
weren't
from
they?
recent
It
years.
was a
Shifting
massive
winds,
shift,
dropping
and McLaren
temperatures, the
obviously
threat of
with
rain.
the commanding
Yeah.
lead in the
It created
constructors.
so it's really become this
storm of
intense
unpredictability.
intra-team
Strategy,
fight for the
driver
driver's title.
adaptability,
Which is just
moments of
fantastic
pure
for the
brilliance.
sport,
We
isn't it?
saw it
That
all.
tension,
Aston
that
Martin
rivalry within the same
consistently
garage,
strong.
it
McLaren
makes it
dominant
incredibly
and
compelling
struggling
viewing.
with the wind.
What a
And Charles
race
Leclerc
indeed.
pulling that
So much
rabbit
to
out of the
unpack.
hat for an
Norris's
unexpected,
strategy,
but you
Alonso's
have to say,
brilliance, that McLaren dominance in the
well-deserved
internal
pole.
fight.
It was a masterclass in adapting on the
Unforgettable.
fly.
Definitely.
Everyone
and
involved.
it leaves you
And this
thinking,
deep
doesn't it?
dive
For
really
you, the
shows
listener,
that,
how
yeah,
does this
F1 is
McLaren
incredibly
dynamic
technical.
evolve now the championship
But the
is
human
this close?
element, reading
Especially
the
on tracks where
conditions, plus
strategy
those
is maybe
forces
even
of
more
nature,
critical.
they can
Good question.
completely
What about
overturn
Alonso's roller
expectations.
coaster? What
The
does that tell
margins
us
were
about
incredibly
just
fine
how
across the
demanding
board.
F1
It shows
is
how competitive the
psychologically
field
and
is right now.
physically. Week
Anything
in,
really
week
can
out.
happen on the
Lots
day.
to chew on
Absolutely.
there. We hope you enjoyed this
Which
deep
leaves
dive
us with
into
a really
truly
interesting
fascinating
thought, doesn't it?
Hungarian
Given how
Grand Prix.
much